Book royalties. What are they and how do they work? My name is Brian Dixon from Hope Books, and on this way to the office, I'm going to walk you through how book royalties work and the three different models and helping you figure out which one's best for you. So, traditionally, book royalties are what you get paid when your books sell from a traditional publisher. So, essentially, there's two kinds of royalties that you get from a traditional publisher. The first one is called an advance on royalties. And the second one is your residual royalties after you've earned out your advance. So let me break that down for you real quick. So basically, the way it works with a traditional publisher is they're taking a bet on you. They're taking a gamble. They're saying, I think that this author can sell X number of books. So they're going to invest all of their team, their time, their talent, their tools, their treasure into you and into the book to help it sell. And the goal is to 10x their money, at least make their money back, but definitely make a profit from your book. So let's just say, for example, that it costs about $20,000 to publish a book when all is said and done. Okay, so now the book is published, and then every book that sells, let's say it sells for 17 bucks, costs $5 to print and another $2 to ship, and then Amazon has a fee of 40%. So it's about $6, maybe $5 net profit from a book. Okay, so what happens is they take that $5 net profit from the book and they pay you a little bit of it. Now, the average royalty rate for a traditionally published book is between 5 to 10%. Sometimes, if you have a really good agent, sometimes up to 20. So let's just go with the highest number possible. Okay, there's about 20%, 20% on net. That means that if your book sells for about 17 bucks and then the publisher profit is about $5. That means 20%, you're going to get $1 a book. So you have this book that's a runaway bestseller. It sells 10,000 copies. And what happens? You get paid $10,000, about $1 a book. And that's pretty normal. I've heard of people getting like 65, 75 cents per book. So $1 a book is really good with a traditional publisher. Now, the thing is, you might not actually get that money. And the reason for it is because some publishers, a lot less now, it used to be way more popular, but some publishers will pay what's called an advance on royalties. So essentially they're saying, we think this book is going to sell 20,000 copies. And we think as a publisher, we're going to make $5 a book. So about $100,000 from those 20,000 books. And so therefore, in order to make the $100,000, we're willing to pay it a license, pay in ahead of time, pay in advance on the royalties that the author's going to get them to sign up with us. Okay, so it's an incentive for the author to say yes to that publisher. Surrendering your rights, you're giving the rights to the publisher to publish your book in exchange for some cash. Okay, so if they think they're going to make $100,000 on a book because it's going to sell 20,000 copies, and your net royalty is going to be, let's say, 20%, which means you're going to make about $10K on the book, then what they might do is they might give you the first half. They might give you $5K as an advance. Now, what's really interesting is as the book starts to sell, you're not going to make any money in addition from the book until you've earned out your advance, okay? You probably heard this before. This is a really big topic. Earning out your advance means that you have basically paid yourself back from the money that they have already given you ahead of time, okay? So that is called the advance on royalties. Now, the way that works is they're projecting how much they think you're going to make from the book, and then they give you probably about half of it up front. Now, did you know that the average author never earns out their advance? Now, what that means, earning out your advance, means that you have sold more books than what they've paid you for already. So if they pay you $5,000 as an advance on royalties, they're expecting you to have sold X number of books. But if you never sell that many books, then they don't owe you any more money. And so really the only money that you get paid for your book is the money that you've already gotten paid for your book. Do you get it? Unless you sell more copies. Now, this is where it can get really fun. If you sell more copies, you make more money, but you only make that money after you've earned out your advance on your royalties. Just for sake of argument, let's say you make $1 a book. They paid you $5,000 as an advance. Then you would have to sell 5,000 books in order to earn out your advance. And then anything beyond that, let's say you sell 6,000 books, then they would pay you $1,000. They would pay you the rest of that royalty. Now, the way it works is they're only going to do that on a quarterly basis. Most publishers will only pay royalties on a quarterly basis. So what that means is if you sell a bunch of books for the Christmas season in December, then probably you won't get paid for that January, February, March, probably April 1st, because the quarter has to end. Then they do a quarter of accounting, and then they would pay you. Sometimes it's even every 6 months. So it's not like you sell a book on Amazon today and then you get paid right away from that traditional publisher. Okay, so that's the world of traditional publishing. Now, what you got to remember is that traditional publishing often also includes an agent, and that agent is going to get 15% of your royalties. So if they owed you $5,000, that agent is going to get, what is that, $750 of that $5,000 as the finder's fee, the royalty, right? Like they're getting a royalty on your royalties, or they're getting a percentage of your royalties. Like a commission is maybe what you might be familiar with, like in the world of real estate. It's like getting a commission on your royalties because they were the ones that landed the deal because they're your agent. Can you land a book deal with an advance without an agent? Most publishers won't even talk to you. Most publishers don't want to work directly with the author. They want to keep that relationship pure. They want to keep that relationship all about the content. They want the business stuff to be handled by an agent who's a professional, non-emotional, does it all the time. They want to work with somebody who is more of a business person. They want to work with you because you have the heart, you have the message. And so that's why most publishers only want to talk to agents. They do not want to talk to an author. So if you're thinking about the traditional deal, you got to get an agent first. That's a whole nother thing we talk about in another video. So that's all the traditional publishing. At the end of the day, this book right here, if it's published by a traditional publisher, the way it works is if this sells for $17, that publisher is going to make about $5 on that book, and they're going to pay the author somewhere between 50 cents to $1. So you could sell thousands of books and only make a couple $1,000s. But Brian, the book sells for $17. If I sold 1,000 books, that's $17,000 worth of revenue. Why am I only getting 1/17 of that? It's because the publisher has expenses. The publisher has a building. The publisher has an editorial team. The publisher has marketing expenses. The publisher has executives they have to pay. The publisher has relationships with bookstores. The publisher has printers and retirement funds and healthcare and all sorts of things. I just want you to know that when you work with a traditional publisher, your book essentially is funding their business. If it does well. If it doesn't do well, then they lose money, and that's why it's a risk. That's also why they pay you a lower royalty, because they are taking a risk on you. So what if your book doesn't sell at all? Then you don't get a royalty at all besides the advance if you got an advance. Okay, we went deep on that. Let's talk about the opposite of that. So that's traditional publishing. The opposite of that is self-publishing. This is where you do it all yourself. Imagine that you've got this book idea and you're like, you know what? I think I'm just going to do it myself. I'm just going to write it myself. I'm going to publish it myself. I'm going to figure out the cover and the editing, and I'm going to write the book, and I'm going to launch the book, and I'm going to get it on Amazon. I'm going to do all these things myself. Let's still run through the numbers. $17 book minus the printing cost, minus the shipping is $3 or $4. So now you're going from $17 to $13 or $12. Amazon still takes about a 40% fee. So that's another $4 or $5 off the top. So you're going from about $12 now to about $6 or $7. And you get to keep the whole thing. How cool is that? So let's just, for the sake of argument, say it's about the same as a traditional publisher. If the publisher's making $5, you as a self-published author are the publisher. So you get all $5 to keep. But here's the thing. You have to take those $5 and put it into the cover design, the editorial, any marketing expenses, anything like that. So it's like you're still taking on the risk, but you've got to pay for it up front because you have to do all that work before you see $1, before that book actually sells. Now, you can make a lot more money because you're making 100% of the net revenue, but you have to do all the work. There's a lot of people that say self-publishing is so easy. Self-publishing is not easy if you want to do it well. Okay, so then the last option for royalties is working with a hybrid publisher. And there's a lot of garbage ones out there. We are a hybrid publisher at Hope Books, and I just think we do it a lot better and we do it differently. Basically, the way it works is if it costs $20,000 to publish a book, which is average, all the expenses to do it right, right? The cover design, the editorial layout, the marketing, all the things you need to do in order to publish a book well costs around $20,000. The way it works is Hope Books puts in $10K, our authors put in about $10K, and then split all the profits. So when a book makes $5, guess what? You get half of it. You don't get $1 of it. You get about $2.50, $3 of the book, depending on how much it sells for. We split the expenses up front and we split the profit in the end. I think that's the fairest way to do it. And what's nice about a hybrid publisher like Hope Books is you get a lot of say over what you want to go into the book. You get to choose your book title. You get to choose the covers. You get to give feedback on the covers. You get to work with the editor, and we don't edit out your words and change the tone of voice and maybe filter out what you really want to say. We let you say it because it's your book. So those are your three options when it comes to royalties, okay? Lowest royalty is a traditional publisher, but it's also the lowest risk because they do it all. They take on the risk themselves. It's hard to get a deal because they're taking on the risk. So they need to think that you're going to sell a lot of copies. There's also, nobody really talks about this. There's also a ton of pressure to want to impress the publisher and want to earn out your advance on royalties. Okay. So that's option one, traditional publishing, lowest royalty, lowest risk. The opposite of that, option number two, is self-publishing, highest royalty, highest risk. You got to do it all yourself and pay for it up front. And in fact, I've seen that comparing the two, traditional publishing and self-publishing, most self-published authors barely sell any copies. I heard a stat recently that the average author sells less than 12 copies. That's a lot of work to only make $60. And then there's the middle, and the middle option number three, is hybrid publishing. And this is what we do at Hope Books, where we have a coaching program, we have a cohort, we have community, we have a support process to help you not just write the book and publish the book, but actually launch the book. And that's where we do 50-50. So you can get about 10% traditional publishing, 100% self-publishing, or 50% with a hybrid, kind of like Hope Books. So check out hopebooks.com to learn more. But I hope this video has been helpful for you to learn about the differences in royalty rates and exactly how it works.